Hey there, this is Andrew, and I'm here to bring you another KeyForge cards tier list. So this time we're going to be going over all the Shadows cards to date and rating them in a grid. So if you haven't seen one of these before, a tier list, the idea is we'll look at each card and we'll slot it in either S tier is the highest. I think it stands for like super or something. Then we have A, B, C, D. D we can kind of think of as cards that you really would just rather not see in a deck. S are cards that you would really seek after. Interestingly, I guess theoretically these probably correlate to something like Z score or something. I don't know. Maybe someday somebody wants to compare my ratings to Z's or to the SAS score, because there are SAS scores per card that get multiplied based on synergies and things like that. But anyway, I'm not doing any of that. This is just me going off the cuff. And all right, let's get to it. I think I have all the cards represented here. So let's start. We have bait and switch. So this one's interesting. It's an action that says play if your opponent has more amber than you, steal one. If they still have more amber than you, repeat the preceding effect. That's been errata. Originally, it could loop indefinitely, but like closed door negotiation. But now it can only now it can fire max twice, which is a nerf that they handled with an errata. So I'm actually going to put it in B tier now. I actually think it can be good, but it's so situational. Yeah, it's iffy. All right, Ghostly Hand says if your opponent has one, steal one, but it has two Amber Pips, and I think that's pretty great. That might go to A tier, but I'm going to put it in B for now. We'll see. All right, Miasma says your opponent skips their Forge a Key step on their next turn. I think it's S tier. This is effectively a key cheat. Your opponent's key cheats can get around it, but it is effectively a key cheat and very good. So I'm going to put it there for now. Okay, Pawn Sacrifice. Destroy a friendly creature. If you do, deal 3 damage to 2 creatures. That's quite good. Is it A? I'm going to put it in A. I think I'm always happy to see that. Actually, maybe it should be B, because I think Poison Wave should be A tier. Poison Wave is get an amber, deal 2 damage to each creature. That's solid. It's a really nice potential board wipe. Relentless Whispers. Get an amber, deal 2 damage to a creature. If you destroy it, steal 1. That's very good. I'm just wondering if Poison Wave should be back down in B tier here. Might have to do some readjusting. All right. Evasion Sigil. This is a weird one. It's an artifact. When a creature fights, its controller discards the top card of their deck. And if if the discarded card matches the active house, then you exhaust the creature with no effect. So it cancels the fight, but the creature's still exhausted. It's really game warping. I don't think it's a reliable way to win a game. So it used to be a lot better when okay, so I used to do a lot of Brobnar fight based amber control, and it's really good against that, but it might even be C tier, but it's so good for protecting some of these good creatures. Okay, Speed Sigil. The first creature you play each turn, each player plays each turn, Enters play ready. That it can be bad, but it also can be really good. So I'm going to put it in A. It maybe should be S, but I think it's okay in A. Carlo Phantom, when you play an artifact, you steal one. It can be, again, it can be very good. But it's situational. It depends on what you get it with. Okay, Fagin. We'll actually save Fagin for later. It doesn't make sense just yet. All right, Magda, play steal 2. And then it creates a lasting effect that when Magda leaves play, your opponent steals 2. Play steal 2 is really strong. The fact that it's creature based and not action based is actually pretty interesting, and there are ways to mitigate that. There are ways to mitigate that your opponent steals 2 if you just time things right. So I think Magda can be quite strong if you know how to play it right. Okay. So this next one is Moon Cursor. And Moon Cursor, I love because I have Moon Cursor in a deck with Speed Sigil, where I've had a really good time. But it's actually, unless you have Speed Sigil, it's pretty unreliable. So Moon Cursor has Skirmish, Poison, and Fight Steal 1, which is great if you can get a fight. But it's like I said, it's just unreliable. Okay. Naughty, 2 power, elusive with action, steal 1. Again, unreliable. Carlo, I think, belongs up here because at least with Carlo, you can reliably get a steal by just having an artifact, and so it's a little better. But notice a lot of these get better if you have Speed Sigil. I think that's why I like Speed Sigil up here. Dodger, similar. I think C tier here. Selwyn, fight reap, move one amber from one of your cards to your pool. So situational and doesn't really synergize well, I think, with the rest of the stuff in worlds. Yeah, no. Selwyn, I just think you kind of need this cross house synergy, and it takes a couple turns for it to fire, and it just is bad. Shadow Self, very interesting, does good work. So 9 power, and damage dealt to its neighbors is dealt to it instead. That's pretty solid and has a wide variety of uses. It's not taunt, but it does a cool thing, so I think that's pretty interesting. Silvertooth, enters play ready, 2 power. I'm going to put that as a C, honestly, because I think on its own it's not very good. With some good upgrades, it can be good. By good upgrades, I basically mean Dusk Runner, though. So, Urchin, solid, absolutely solid. Play steal 1. Yep. Okay, and now's a good time to do Fagin. So Fagin says reap, return an Urchin from play or your discard pile to your hand. So you're getting extra play out of your Urchins. That's solid, but it's slow. So it's kind of like reap, steal 1. And Fagin has elusive. And if you get Fagin, you're guaranteed at least 2 Urchins. But there's a lot of decks out there with Fagin and 3, maybe even 4 Urchins. It can only return 1 per reap, but it's still, I think it's still pretty good. So it's just slow. So I think it belongs, it's actually a little better than Naughty, but generally probably belongs in a similar bucket to Naughty. I'm going to put it in B tier. I'm going to put Fagin in B tier. I could be wrong. All right. Dusk Runner is an upgrade that gives a creature reap steal 1. I'm going to put this in B because I think it's it's kind of like bait and switch. It can be very good, especially if you put it on something that'll live and has another good reap effect, and now you're getting extra value. If you can put it on something that's already ready and use it right away, that's great. But you can't always, and so it's just a little less reliable. Silent Dagger, reap deal 4 damage to a flank creature. Pretty nice, and you get that amber right away. Again, not super reliable, but it is, I think, extra good in Shadows because Shadows is not generally a board control house. So having 4 damage to a single target is actually quite good. Okay, so then we have Dusk Chronicles. So this, if your opponent has more amber than you, you draw a card. But if you have more than them, you archive a card. It's actually pretty good. Archiving a card, I think, is quite good. So we'll put that in A tier. Treasure Map says, and by the way, in Shadows, you probably have more amber than your opponent most of the time if things are going well. That's one of the problems with bait and switch, and why, yeah, because you should be ahead, and so a card that basically is lab work if you're ahead is good. Lab work's a good card. Probably I put lab work in A tier, right? I should say I should be treating these as across the board of KeyForge cards, not just within Shadows. So yeah. Okay. So Treasure Map gets you an amber, and then if you haven't played any cards yet, then you gain 3 amber and can't play other cards. So if it's the only card you play on your turn, it's 4 amber. Otherwise, it's just 1 amber and does nothing. So it's an interesting card. I think it's mostly not good. And here's why. Burst, where you're not interacting with your opponent, is not great. Is a problem at high level play. Okay, there you go. Okay, so next we have what's this guy's name? I'm really not a fan of this guy. Let me see. This is. I wish I could read a little clearer here. It would actually be nice if there was a hover, but that's okay. So this guy is Knuckles Bolton. That's right. So Knuckles Bolton, 3 power, skirmish, elusive. He's just bad. He does nothing good. Lamindra, 1 power, elusive, gives neighbors elusive, also bad. Life for a life. 1 power, destroy friendly creature. If you do 6 damage to an enemy creature. That's good, and I think it's better actually than the 3 power one. Yeah. Okay, Nerve Blast. Steal 1 if you do 2 damage. That's solid. I like Relentless Whisper slightly better, although Nerve Blast is a more reliable steal. But yeah, those are both great cards. Ronnie is a great card and actually a little better than Urchin in isolation, although with Fagin maybe it's close. Sucker Punch is interesting. So I love Sucker Punch, but I don't think that it belongs in A tier. I think maybe it's like a B tier. Um, so back in AOA days, Sucker Punch was really good because you had a lot of these little like 1 or 2 power elusives that you had to kill or your life was or you were going to lose. And so having Sucker Punch was great because it kills the thing and then it archives itself if it kills something. So you actually then you get the amber next time and you have the tool available. It was great. I think since then, since like Worlds Collide and Mass Mutation, Woe, I just think that the value of doing 2 damage to something at the start of your turn is much lower, and you're less likely to archive it. It struggles a little more. Swindle, I'm going to put also in B tier. Alpha and Omega steal 3, so it literally means this you can't do anything else on your turn. And you steal 3. It can be good, but it also throws away your turn. I've never liked it. Some people like it more. Yeah, it's not for me. Okay, throwing stars. I'm gonna put this at D tier. It can be great. Deal 1 damage to up to 3 creatures. For each creature that's destroyed this way, you gain 1. So it can be destroy 3 creatures, gain 3 amber. But it's just not reliable, and then you don't even get an amber pit. Whistling darts do 1 damage to each enemy creature. That can be pretty interesting. Why? I think poison wave ought to be lower. Yeah. Okay. Hidden stash, gain 1, archive 1. That's good. I'm actually wondering now. What did I do on Logos? Did I put lab work in the A tier? I had sloppy lab work in the A tier. And where did I put lab work? Wow, Logos cards are so good. Yeah, I had it in there. Okay, so I'm right. Okay. So let's see. So Hideaway Hole has Omni. You can sacrifice it to give all your creatures elusive until the start of your next turn. I don't think that wins games. Lil Nif, 2 power, elusive, deploy. I think it's deploy and Omega. When one of its neighbors fights, you steal 1. But because it has Omega, just your chances of actually getting value out of it are pretty low. Merkins. I'm going to put Merkins in the A tier. I think so. Merkins, when you play it, you choose to either play the top card of your opponent's deck or a random card from their archives. That's really good. Interacting with your opponent's archives is solid. I really like it. I think it's a great card. And a friend has Gurlami has like a 4 Merkins alliance that's pretty cool. Okay, Nightforge bad. Maybe C tier. I could see you winning a game with it, but so why is it bad? It's an action with an amber that says play. If you didn't forge a key yet this turn, you forge a key at +4 current cost. So it's a key cheat, but it can't help you get 2 in a turn, so it's a little rough. Redlock is just bad. 3 power skirmish. If you don't play any creatures in a turn, then you get an amber at the end. That's not great. Bullet Eye, 2 power, reap. It's elusive, 2 power, reap, destroy a flank creature. That's strong. But just a little iffy and slow. Okay, Customs Office can be good. I'm going to put this in B tier. Customs Office is an artifact that says in order to play an artifact, your opponent has to give you an amber. And that can actually block them from playing artifacts. It also can how did treasure map get back in here? So it can block them from playing artifacts. It also can give you amber, which is great. But if your opponent's not playing an artifact deck, well, maybe it should be A. A lot of artifact control is situational. What did I say for treasure map? I think it's like a B. Like it's very situational. Depno Spymaster, 1 power elusive Omni. It lets you use another creature, use a friendly creature. So it's kind of like lets you treat a different one of your creatures like it was in the active house every turn, which is interesting, but it's so killable. Key of Darkness, forge a key at +6, unless your opponent has no amber, in which case it's just +2, and it's just it's not good. Guard Disguise, if your opponent has less than 3, steal 3. It's an artifact with an action. The problem is it's slow. You can't use it the turn you play it, and then your opponent can kind of just work around it too easily. Long Fuse Mines. Omni, deal 3 damage to each enemy non-flank creature. That's actually really good for helping wipe the board. And the Omni part of it makes it extra good. Okay, Mac's very good. 3 power can be used like he was in the active house. Elusive and has action, deal 1 damage to a creature. If it dies, you gain an amber. So you can reap, you can fight. It's just very versatile, which is now what that ability is called, to use it as if it were in your active house. So Max is really very versatile, and if you have an opponent's creature at 1 amber, then you can kill it and get an amber without hurting your Mac. It's just really good. Okay. All right, rats. Plague rat. So it's not good. So it's interesting. I'm going to put plague rat in D because the problem is if you get enough plague rats for it to matter, that's like cool board control, but it's not advancing your win condition really, and so I think it's bad. Rigged lottery is an interesting one. I'm going to put this in B tier, partially just because of the disruption, because you are you're discarding 5 cards from your opponent's deck. That might not seem like a big deal in Grim Reminder's world, but back when it came out, it was pretty unique to be able to do that. And actually maybe D tier because it's or C tier because it's actually a lot worse now that there are so many other houses. Back when every set had shadows and shadows was one of the better houses, I would say rigged lottery was better. Now it's worse. All right. Invisibility ring gives a creature elusive and skirmish. It's fine. Okay, routine job. Steal 1. Steal 1 more for every routine job in your discard pile. So, and you're guaranteed to get at least 2 of them. You can get up to 4. If you have 4, it's very, very good. Even if you have 2, it's fine, right? You have a steal 1 and a steal 2. It's a little vulnerable to purge effects if we're getting rid of them, but then the 1 still does steal 1. So it's about equal to a Nerve Blast on its own, a little less than a Nerve Blast, but the second and third ones are devastating. Shard of Greed. Gain 1 for each for each shard. That could be quite good. It's slow. It's just slow. But if you have multiple shards, it actually could be pretty okay. And maybe I just haven't seen it be good because it's rare and it's AOA, and some of the other shards aren't great. Okay, Sneck Lifter. Play, take control of an enemy artifact. That's really strong. I might need to graduate some of these. We'll see. All right, Avenda, Reap, deal 1 to an enemy creature if it's destroyed. Actually, let's just deal 1 to a creature. If it's destroyed, your opponent discards 1. I don't think that's very good, but it's okay. Bad Penny is bad. Is actually bad. Breaker Hill gives its neighbors action steal 1. It's elusive, and it's pretty bad. It just doesn't work out. Hit and Run is interesting. 2 power, return a friendly creature to your hand. It can be good, but it's very situational. We're going to put it in the C tier. Hawk. Get an amber, destroy an artifact. If you do, gain 1. That's solid. That's just really good. Hugger Mugger, I'm going to put in B tier. You play it. If your opponent has more amber than you, you steal 1. And then it has, oh, sorry, no. If your opponent has more keys than you, you steal 1. Wait, which one is it? Capture 1. Then if your opponent has more forged keys, you steal 1. It can just, it's generally it's like 3 power elusive, steal 1. That's it. That's what it does most of the time. But occasionally it's better than that, and even that can sometimes be the thing you need to to land a win. Okay, Inky Gloom. Your opponent's creatures can't reap next turn. That's a really nice effect. J-Venda, 2 power, reap, deal 1 damage to a creature. It's elusive, by the way. Deal 1 damage to a creature, and if it's destroyed, you steal 1. That's pretty good, and sometimes combos nicely with other Shadows cards. Let's see. Kymor Eclipse. Shuffle each flink creature into its owner's deck. It's good. So it was only in AOA, and it's good if you combo it with Ronnie. Other than that, it was kind of bad, and it's kind of not that helpful. Oh, sorry, Worlds Collide. Yeah, is that what I said? I meant Worlds Collide. And it's kind of not great board control, actually. So I'm going to put it in C. Pestering Blow, deal 1 damage to a creature and enrage it. Not very helpful. Simon, 1 power. Skirmish, fight, put a creature on top of its owner's deck. It's an interesting one, but very, very seldom useful. Trust no one. Play. So this one's weird. If you have a board, then you steal 1. If you don't have a board, if you have no creatures on the board, then you steal 1 for each house represented among your opponent's creatures. That can be pretty good. I'll put it up with like Nerve Blast or Urchin. There is a weird space where if you have no board and your opponent has no board, it's steal 0. But that's pretty rare. So I think it's pretty good. Umbra, fight, steal 2 with skirmish is fine. but not reliable. Yancey Gang 5 power action steal 1. I think this is a little more reliable than Naughty, but it's close. So I feel it should go close to Naughty. Okay, Chain Gang is interesting. 3 power, action steal 1. But if you play Subtle Chain, it readies the Chain Gang, and when you action the Chain Gang, it can shuffle a Subtle Chain from your discard pile to your deck. So it's kind of an interesting combo. If it hits. So, but still a little unreliable. Maybe it should be a little better. And Subtle Chain's interesting. I guess together those probably go in like B tier. Subtle Chain, yeah, readies the Chain Gang and then gets shuffled back. And Subtle Chain discards a random card from your opponent's hand. Well, what? What card is that? Is that Into the Night? Yep, Into the Night. Till the start of your next turn, non-shadows creatures can't be used to fight. I don't think it's very good. Okay, so no safety in numbers. Does 3 damage to each creature that shares a house with 2 or more creatures on the board. Another interesting kind of like partial wipe. I'll put it in B. It's a little situational, but can be okay. Oubliette. Purge a creature with 3 or less power. That actually can be pretty clutch. I'm going to put that in A tier. Skeleton Key action. One of your creatures captures an amber. That can also be really good in the right situation. I'm going to put that in B. It's not as good as Stealing, but it's repeatable, which is nice. I think if it had Omni, it would be, I mean, that would be crazy. Okay. Special Delivery. So this is an interesting one. It has Omni, you destroy it, and you deal 3 damage to a flank creature, and if it destroys the creature, then you purge the creature. I think that's really solid. It's really nice board control. Okay. Subtle Maul action. Your opponent discards 1. In general, it's bad. TMTP, too much to protect. Gain an amber. If your opponent has, well, steal all but 6 of your opponent's amber. That's very, very good. It's extremely good. And yeah, it's just a really good card. And when you combine it with one of these other Steal 1 cards, which there are so many of in Shadows, it gets your opponent down to 5, which means they don't forge usually, which is great. I think this is Whisper. Yeah, Whisper is 3 power elusive, lose 1 if you do action, lose 1 if you do destroy a creature. I think it's bad. Hunter or Hunted. You gain an amber, and then you either ward a creature or you move a ward from one creature to another. It's kind of at least gives an amber. Sometimes it's okay. Warding creature is fine. Okay, key forgery. This one's interesting. When your opponent would forge a key, they name a house, and then you reveal a random card from your hand. And if the key, if the card that got discarded doesn't match the house that they named, then you destroy KeyForgery and they don't forge, and they don't spend any amber. Um, so it's just a nice. It blocks a key potentially, which is pretty interesting. Where'd it go? I'm going to put that in B tier. Maybe it should go in A. It's just a really interesting. It's an interesting card, and it's unreliable, which is why I would drop it down to B. Versus like, maybe it should go in A because it's unreliable, not like Miasma, but it is very good, and it stays. The reason it's actually better than Miasma in some ways is you play it and then it matters when they go to forge a key, not at the moment you play it. So it sticks around longer. So yeah, that's actually really good. Lethal Distraction does more damage to a creature. I've almost never seen it be really good. Is that Manchego? Yeah, Manchego. Play if you have 5 or fewer cards in your deck, steal 2. After you fight a Reap, you may shuffle it into your deck. Doesn't fire a lot in my experience, so I don't love it. Scowly Keeper, it's Treachery. It enters play under your opponent's control. 2 power, Skirmish, and they can use it as if it were in the active house. And so it's one of these Treachery versatile, and it destroys its neighbor at the end of the turn. It's interesting, but I don't think it wins games. Quiet Animal makes keys cost -2, but the next time somebody forges a key, it destroys itself. I think this can be really interesting. It's just situational, so I'm going to put it at B. We Sand. So after a player forges a key, you gain 2. That's pretty weird and situational. It has deploy elusive, but if it's on a flank, you destroy it. It's only 1 power. I just don't think it matters. Okay, plants. I guess we have all the plants on here. That's kind of fun. All 6 plants. So there's 1 per 6 houses that were opposite shadows in Worlds Collide. They each are 1 power elusive, and after a player chooses the corresponding house as their active house, you gain an amber. They just don't win games. They're a cool idea, though. And I think they're even worse now that we have, like, what, 11 or 12 houses in the game? Okay, Bone Nithing. Play, steal 1 for each forged key your opponent has. That can be quite good, up there with Ronnie and Urchin. They do nothing early, but as the game gets later, they're better and better. Dark Wave, do 2 damage to each non-mutant creature. This could be even better than Poison Wave because it's one-sided. Still, 2 power doesn't like totally control the board, but it's I think interesting and good. Look over there. I'm going to put a little. I don't know. Okay, 2 damage. If the creature lives, you steal 1. That's, I mean, strictly worse than Relentless Whispers because, well, I guess maybe not. It probably fires more often than Relentless Whispers, but doesn't come with the Amber. I don't know. It's an interesting trade-off. Francis the Economist, I don't like, and I consider him a good target for Look Over There or One Last Job. Gamgee, pretty unreliable for stealing. Mug is a great card. I just always find good uses for Mug, so I'm going to put that in A tier. I'm trying to speed myself up a little bit. I think, let's see. Mutant Cut Purse. 3 power just gives you damage pips. Probably C tier, just because the damage pips are okay. Okay, Nexus. What about Nexus in B tier? It's just unreliable, but it's very good to get to use an opponent's artifact as if it were yours. Okay. Opportunist. Capture one, and it gives the creature elusive. I think that's Opportunist. That's pretty good. I like Opportunist. Rad Penny goes high A tier, I think. Should it go into S tier? It's great because it cycles itself. I think I'm gonna put that in S tier. Actually, it's better than, it's actually better than Urchin and Ronnie and whatnot. Seeker Needle, so many good uses. I'm gonna put this in A tier, and partially just because they've been very intentional about giving it good synergy. So when you're doing partial damage with some of these damage cards and can finish things off, it's great. When you can hit your own Rad Penny, it's great. It's really good. So Shoulder Id has Taunt. It's, I think, the only taunt in Shadows. It can't fight. When it would deal damage, you steal one instead, and it doesn't do much. Sometimes the taunt matters, but generally speaking, I find its opponents find ways to deal with it, especially since enhancements are such a thing. Subtle Auto, 1 power, play your opponent discards a card. Probably high C tier. It can be good, but it doesn't give an amber. It's kind of iffy. Tempting Offer. This one's interesting because it's getting a creature off the board without destroying it. Sometimes that's very good. The problem is sometimes it's bad, but I think I'm going to put this in B tier. So, and if you do lift one, then your opponent gains one, and it has a capture enhancement. Compare it to, I'm going to jump ahead to Lights Out. I think Lights Out is an A tier card. Put 2 creatures back into your opponent's hand. It's very good. It's strictly better than Tempting Offer. Okay, Vandalize. You get to look at the top 3 cards of your opponent's deck, discard one, and rearrange the others. That's super good. Super might mean it should be S tier, but I don't quite think so because it is unreliable, but it absolutely can win games. Borrow is going in S tier. I like Artifact Control. Bone Rot Venom. This is C tier. When this creature's used, you deal 2 damage to it. It's fine, but it's not great. Booby Trap. This is a really good damage card. 4 damage to a non-flank creature with 2 splash. Yeah, that's solid. That actually does a lot of work. It does more work than Poison Wave. That's why I like it. Boss Zarek, 3 power, 3 capture enhancements, and it gives your creatures with amber on them elusive. That can be good, but it's situational. Fidget, unfortunately, just doesn't fire often enough, so I'm going to put it down in D tier. 2 power elusive after it reaps. Maybe I should move some of this D up to C. I could be a little harsh, but it just doesn't fire enough. Maybe I'll move this up to C because it is a cool effect when it fires. It's still bad because you discard the top card of your opponent's deck. If it's you reveal 1 card from their hand. If it's an action, you play it. Otherwise, nothing. So yeah, I don't think it's very good. Lucky Dice, you Omni it to prevent your creatures from taking damage. Again, too situational. Okay, we're getting there. Masus Asp, 3 power skirmish poison. It can do good work. Has more survivability, say, than Simon, so I think it belongs here. But again, it's usually not winning games. Old Bruno can win games. He doesn't steal, but it's a pretty good capture, and I think combined with some of the other punishing steal stuff, it's very good. Ransack, steal 1, and then discard cards, and as long as you're hitting shadows, you keep stealing. I think it belongs a place in A. Perplexing Sophistry can make your opponent discard a card. If you have more amber than them, you draw a card and they discard one. That's solid. Miasma Bomb, I'm going to put up in A tier. It can win a game, but it's not on demand. It's not the turn you play it, so it's slow. And if it had Omnia, it would definitely be S tier for me. But because it's you have to go back into shadows, I just rely on it a little less. Whereas again, Miasma, I think you can like archive and then fire the turn you really need it. Okay, so yeah, Reckless Rizzo, 1 power, elusive, action steal 2, and then it loses its elusive for a turn. It's gonna go, it's like better than naughty, but it's kind of iffy. Shadowsmith gives mutants elusive. It's again very situational. Safe House returns a creature from play to your archives. That's really good, and it combos very well with both Bonithing and Radpenny, and it also can combo well with other good cards in Mass Mutation like Infernus. I think it's like a high A. Okay. Spike Trap, deal 3 damage to each flank creature with Omni. That's pretty solid. I'll put it up here. I think it's comparable to Long Fuse Mines. A little less valuable, but still quite good. Doom Sigil gives each creature poison. I don't think this tends to win games, but it's interesting. I'll put it at least in C. Who is that? It's a little tough. I just don't know the Dark Tidings cards quite as well because Dark Tidings just wasn't as good. Oh, Finchcloak, Fight Reap. If you have less amber than your opponent, steal 1. Otherwise, each player gains 1. Yeah, it's fine. It's like Gamgee. Finishing Blow, I love it. So if a creature has a damage, you destroy it and steal 1. It goes at least with Relentless Whispers. It might belong up in S tier, but I'll just leave it in high A. Gambling Den, very situational, changes the game. Maybe high C tier, but it's interesting. But it can be very good. It just depends on the situation, on what else you have. Let's see. The Sting. I'm going to jump forward to that. The Sting, I think, goes in S tier. It can really, really change the game. When your opponent forges, you get the Ember. You do not. You skip your Forge a Key step though. So you either need to combine it with some tools for key cheating, or you have to use that action ability on it to destroy it or destroy it some other way. But it can be very good. My first Jenka deck that I opened had this in it, which was very good, and that is the build that won World's Alliance, a better version than the one I opened in sealed, but still good. Actually, I don't think I opened it in sealed, but you get the point. Yeah, Heist Knight, Alpha, play steal one for each friendly thief creature. I've just never seen it really be good. So, Imperial Trader, too situational. If your opponent has Sanctum, it's okay, but it's too situational. Johnny Longfingers can be great in a mutant deck, so I'm going to put him in A tier. I like Liam Say. He's a little situational too, but I think his ability is pretty good. Mastermindy, whatever. Not reliable. Mole's interesting, but again, situational. One Last Job is a great card for a burst of steel, and works especially well if you have a deck with good efficiency. But getting to like steal, getting to play a bunch of thieves and then steal and purge them is actually quite good and interesting. So I think that belongs in A tier. Then we have what is that one? Pinch Raider. So this one's very interesting for mass mutation. At the end of each turn, you deal 1 damage to each flank creature. Really cool with Rad Penny, but I don't think it ever did like a ton of good work. So I'm going to put it in C tier. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Sack of Coins. Deal 1 damage for each amber you have. That's pretty cool. I think it's a great card. Safe Place. I don't like this style of card. You can move an amber to it, and then you can spend amber from it. But I actually don't think that's very good. There's too much artifact control wrecks you. Okay, let's try to move faster. Shadowsaurus, interesting, but I think not great. Smiling Ruth, cool, but unreliable. Splinter, I'll put it here in C tier for those damage pips, but as a creature, it's not good at all. Shadow Council, um, unreliable. Better and worse than naughty at the same time. Goes in the same bucket. What about the hybrid, the mutant hybrids? So the ability on the Shadows ones is they get elusive, and that makes me sad. The Dis ones are just better. They actually are the ones with steel, which is funny to me. So it all just depends on like what they're paired with, because I think the elusive is bad. So for example, this one that gets the one that gets destroyed, steel one, I think is A tier. The one that has play deal 3, exalt it, is I think B tier. The one with skirmish is C tier with Knuckles Bolton because they're the same card. I'll move Knuckles Bolton up. The one with armor is just bad. Shadowsaurus probably belongs in C tier because it's a big body. The one with the reap effect is actually good. I'm gonna put that in A tier. And the one with the fight effect is bad because it won't survive. All right. Might jump around a little bit here. Why do I have borrow again? Okay, well, we're not going to do borrow again. That's funny. Am I doing Francis again? I definitely thought I already looked at Francis. How am I getting these duplicates? I was so careful. Did I do Francis? Yep, there he is. Okay, so we'll try to not repeat. Okay. So let me get a reference on these evil ones. Okay, Captain Nobeard, taunt destroyed, each of its neighbors capture one. That's interesting just because it is taunt, which is rare in Shadows. Certainly in the context of Dark Tidings, I don't think this is very good. Yeah, I'm going to put it in the C tier. Freebooter, evil freebooter Fae, play raise the tide before fight if the tide is high, steal one. Not great. It's nice that it's before fight you steal one, but still kind of iffy. Dark Hard Simpson, if the tide is high, a damaged creature captures one from its own side. I guess that's kind of interesting. I'll put it in B tier. Because it's kind of like Reap Steal one. It's just slow. Hobnobber, Omni, if your opponent has exactly one, steal it. That's Dark Hobnobber. I guess it's interesting that it's Omni, but when is that going to fire? I don't think that's great. Monty Bank. Dark Monty Bank. Play, exalt exactly 2 times, action steal 1 for each amber on it. I think that's bad. You're giving your opponent 2 amber. Dark One-Eyed Willa, elusive skirmish fight. If the tide is high, your opponent loses 2. That's fine. I guess I'd put it in the same bucket with, say, Naughty. See, the Evil Twin Sea Urchin is very good. And why is it very good? Because if the tide is high, you steal 2. So that goes up there with like Ronnie, I think. Okay. Getting toward the end here. The ship. The flying no, that's not the Flying Spectre. That is the Archon's Revenge. Action exhausts up to 2 friendly Shadows creatures. For each creature exhausted this way, steal 1. Yeah, it makes some of the Shadows creatures better than they would be otherwise. But you have to have ready creatures, and that's not great. So, what is it? B? Maybe it's high C. Haha, it's high C's. Okay. Dead Man's Chest. Play, put 4 on it. Deal 2 to a creature. After 6 or more creatures are destroyed in a turn, if it's ready, move each amber from it to the active player's pool. I think that's bad. Your opponent's going to get to benefit from that. Early Birds. Okay, it's just 2 amber. It has alpha. When you play it, you ready each Shadows card. That's your creature should be ready anyway. It's 2 amber. I think that's good, but the effect is kind of dumb. And then easy marks, exalt each damaged enemy creature. I think that's pretty situational. Master Plan, this is a great card. I'm going to put this up in S tier. So when you play it, you put a card face down from your hand under it, and then you omni it to play that card. And that's just great. It's like an archive that gives the card omni. It's super good. Okay, Ransom. Creature can't be used, but it gains at the start of your turn. You may give your opponent 2 amber if you do destroy Ransom. I think that's bad. Maybe it's C tier. I don't think it's great. Then we have submersible. While the tide is high, each friendly thief creature gains elusive. If it was each friendly creature, I think is better, but each friendly thief, most of the thieves have elusive anyway. I don't think that's great. Whoa, what is that? Is that an artifact? Oh, widespread corruption. After a player gains amber by reaping, a creature they do not control captures that amber. I think if you had TMTP, that could be good, but as it is, it's just kind of meh. It's meh. Blatant thievery. Move amber from an enemy creature to your pool and enrage it. I think that's what that card is. It's fine. Brenda's really cool. 3-power, 3-power skirmish. When you play it, your opponent gains 1. When it's destroyed, you steal 3. And you can combine it with a lot of good effects to kill it right away. So it effectively is like you gain 1 and steal 2, which is really good. So I really like Brend. It's a good card. This is Freebooter Fae. Play Raise the Tide. Reap if the tide is high. Steal 1. I think that's actually pretty good. It probably goes next to Fagin. Is this hand cannon before fight? Let's see. What does it do? This creature gains skirmish and fight. Move amber from this creature to the creature it fights. It's cool, but doesn't work out in practice. Cool idea, though. Money Bank. Play, you may exalt Money Bank up to 2 times. Action, steal 1 for each amber on Money Bank. I'm going to say C tier, but it can occasionally do some cool things, but it doesn't even have skirmish, so it's not very survivable. Then we have Save or Sorry. Choose 1. Archive any number of friendly creatures from play, or choose a creature and deal 1 damage to it for each amber your opponent has. That's pretty bad, I think. Stir Up Trouble. Choose a creature and one of its neighbors. Each chosen creature deals damage equal to its power to the other. I mean, that's okay, I guess, but not. Yeah, Dark Tidings is sad. This one, action, steal 1, but only if the tide is high, and when your opponent raises the tide, it destroys itself. You're basically going to get 1 use out of that, maybe. I don't like it. Okay, this one, what was that called? This is a good one. Trickle down theory. Play Raise the Tide. Omni, gain 1 if your opponent has 6 or more. That's solid. Could even be S tier, but I'll leave it in A, because when you combine it with stealing, you can get the 1 and then steal your opponent down, or capture effects work too. That's quite good. Should get you, if you get it early, it's several amber over the course of the game, and it raises the tide, which tide decks need. Cement Shoes, 2 damage to a creature. If it's destroyed, you raise the tide. Yeah, it's just, I think that's not good enough. Gas Pipes Malone. Before fight, the creature it fights captures 1 from its own side. That's kind of cool, but too slow. Hard Simpson can do some steal, situational, but it can be good. Let's see. Hornswoggle, use an artifact. That can be very good. I'll put that in A. Hopefully I did the same with remote access. Sea Urchin, effectively steal 1. We'll put it with Urchin. Jackie Tar, 2 power. If the tide is high, deal 6 damage to a creature, otherwise deal 1. I think it's just fine. It belongs with like Bullet Eye. Look at that. Kerwallop, deal 1 damage to each creature. Right, Kerwallop. Gain 1 for each creature destroyed this way. Pretty unreliable. And then we have Loot or Pillage. Choose to either steal 1 or a friendly creature captures 3. I think it's fine. Is there anything else in B that just steals 1? I don't think so. So yeah, I'll put it here. Maybe I should put Swindle up in A. I don't know. That's rough. Walk the Plank. Play if your opponent has no amber, deal 4 to a creature. Otherwise, steal 1. That's cool. Scooped is so weird. It's slow steal. Deal 2 damage to a creature, and then it captures 1 from its own side. So it's, in that sense, it's kind of like a slow. It's like a slow. Look over there, but it gives you an amber. So I think that's good. But it can't hit your own creatures. And then One-Eyed Willa, fight, steal 1, but it only has elusive and skirmish if you have the tide. Okay, I think some of this stuff in C needs to move up. Probably like Naughty, Yancey Gang, Moon Cursor, Dodger, Umbra, maybe even Bullet Eye, maybe Shadow Council. I think that's probably about right. I think maybe I'm being a little harsh on some of these C tier cards, but Shadows, you really need to be advancing your win condition, and these are cards that kind of like aren't doing that and aren't disrupting your opponent enough. So they just aren't doing. They're getting you an amber, but they don't generally, but they aren't doing enough. The D tier cards are really just dropping the ball. There are some real S tier cards here, and I think this is why Shadows is. It's a very good house. It can be a very good house, but you have to have the right cards. It has to be the right kind of Shadows. All right, I feel pretty good about this. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Hope that maybe gave you some inspiration to try some Shadows decks. Dig back into your Shadows repertoire, and I hope that you get out there and forge some keys.